Welcome to Women Advancing, part of the Advancing Diversity series available from mediavillage.org on YouTube and also on your favorite podcast platform. I'm E.B. Moss, and this week's guest is Ad ID CEO Nada Bradbury. Hello, Nada. Thanks for joining.
Hi, Evie. Thank you so much for having me. So excited to be here.
Yeah, you bet. I have learned so much in researching Ad ID. So let me see if I have this right. In a nutshell, as a non technical person, it's a universal ad tracking solution, which we really need right now, particularly on the digital side, I think. And hopefully, it's making for a better consumer and brand experience. But you're the CEO. So you're going to explain that more. And then we're also going to pay homage to the title of this podcast, which is Women Advancing, and talk about Media Village's goal of offering thought leadership around media and marketing and also advancing diversity. Sound good?
Perfect. Perfect.
All
Sounds
righty.
and yes,
Okay.
you got it all right. You got it all right. We were created over 20 years ago by two nonprofits, the 4As and the ANA, which represent agencies and advertisers alike. And their entire scope was, hey, back in the linear world, which is when this started, back when you could just use your remote to surf through a few channels, we need folks to be able to understand where their advertising dollars are going and making sure that those are being planned appropriately. So that was the use way back when. You fast forward now, there's even more of a need with digital, as you talked about. Things are very complicated. So, in essence, we are a way to be able to associate a unique ID to every advertising creative and understand what that creative is about by collecting metadata around it. Metadata means data about data. And it helps with programming, ad placement, making sure people aren't showing advertisements too often. In a nutshell, transparency and accountability for the ecosystem.
Okay. Well, that's a lot. Um, I know that it has been a little bit more common when you mention metadata. We know of that with programming information, and that's been used a lot in linear. But is this relatively new in the digital and streaming era that we have that kind of identifier?
No, look, it's not new. I think what we are seeing now is the adoption of it is starting to pick up. So there is more of a need as things become more complex. And to really put it in layman's terms, you need a UPC code. I mean, imagine going to
Oh,
the grocery store, right? And trying to buy
yeah.
something without a code against it. That's what this does. It attaches a UPC code so that you can know all the different formats, all the different ways that you are delivering ads in all the different publications, where it's going and how it's being delivered. And that's so critical, especially in today's world where we're all trying to do more with less. Advertising dollars
Yeah.
are not as plentiful as they used to be, and we need to make sure that we're doing the best job we can with them.
I have some questions about how it's going to benefit, as I teed up, both the advertisers as well as the consumers. But first, is this working across all assets? So, me being a radio and a podcasting baby, will it work also across audio? Is it just a television option or video option?
No, it's for everything. It's absolutely
Well,
so yes, hopefully you have ad IDs running across this podcast. Um, but what we like to say for ad ID is that we cover everything. So every creative, every platform, every format, everywhere. Anywhere a creative runs, it has the opportunity to have an ID associated to it.
okay. So, of those promises that we said we'd talk about, this is going to help me solve my John Wanamaker issue for starters of knowing which half of my media spend is working and which is not.
Well, it will help for sure,
Okay.
right? Because that's been the conundrum that all of us have been grappling with for so long. And it helps you understand where your ad is running and who is seeing it so that you can measure on the back end. So it will help grab that 50% of really not knowing what's going on. It helps you give a little bit more context to that.
Now, I said I did do my homework. So I happen to know that Ad ID commissioned a Harris poll about how ad fatigue impacts viewers' purchasing decision kind of negatively. And I can understand that. And I know that you even wrote in a LinkedIn post something very compelling. And you said, let me read this. We're in a strange world where advertisers may be paying to actually lose sales. Nada. That's
Can
very intriguing. Tell us about that.
Can you imagine spending all of your advertising dollars with the hopes of bringing in more sales, yet your ad shows way too often because processes are not in place to ensure that there's what we call frequency capping. So that's making sure that somebody isn't exposed too many times to an ad. And it annoys you. We've all been
Yes.
there, right? You sit there and you're like, why am I seeing this ad again? I cannot
Yes.
possibly. And then what ends up happening, EB, is that not only you do have recall, but unfortunately it's negative, and you're saying, "I want nothing to do with that brand." Sometimes it'll even carry over to the category. I can't even fathom buying something like this. I'm so over it. And it's a shame.
Wow.
It's a shame.
Yeah. I, colloquially, I think it's called the piss off effect. You know, this is
We've
so,
all been there.
yes, we
Unfortunately, we've
have.
all been there. There's better ways to spend our money. The
Right.
first one would be actually bringing sales in with your ad dollars.
So, what else did you find in that poll? What are the other things that we need to do to pivot and improve this scenario?
Yeah, look, what we have seen is that folks want a better ad experience and they are willing to be targeted. They want
Hmm.
activation to be more addressable for them. So there are ways to use data to help promote ads for people that are interested in particular types of categories. So what we see is that people aren't saying, I don't want ads. I want ads that are shown to me a decent number of times so that I can remember and I can be exposed to different types of products and services I may have an interest in. I also would like to see ads that are relevant for me, and
Hmm.
therefore I can make more informed decisions. But I
Right.
definitely do not want the same ad, relevant to me or not, over and over and over again. And if you think about the digital world that we're in today, EB, with I'm watching Yellowstone, and of course I have, I'm watching it on my smart TV, and I have my phone in hand because God forbid I only watch television these can't do that, right? And
Yep.
I'm scrolling through something else and, I could be bombarded by the same ad at the same time, and there are ways around that, and we should be much smarter with our dollars, um,
Okay.
both for the way that we spend so that we can invest more effectively as advertisers, but also to help our consumers make the right decisions and help them be engaged.
So, I'll often see back to back, sometimes to back ads for the same category. So, this little UPC code, the ad ID, will help prevent that because that can't really be beneficial to an advertiser where they're, butting up against their closest competitor. We used to have separation, right?
That's right. That's right. So this utilizing an ID has multiple use cases. One of them is frequency capping, which we talked about, the
Hmm.
piss off effect, as you call it. We can also make sure that there is an ad collision, which is what you're talking about there. I want
Oh,
to make sure that my ad is in place next to either the same category or a competitor, or perhaps something non-savory, right? Something that I just don't want to be associated with.
okay.
Um, there are also SAG-AFTRA requirements. So believe it or not, the Screen Actors Guild, right? They also say, hey, you need to have an ID so that talent can get paid appropriately. So we know that the ads have been shown and we can understand how many times. And then there are internal processes that benefit from having one universal ID that can help track an ad from inception all the way to delivery and then measurement on the back end. So again, just bringing it back to that UPC code analogy, the same way you use a UPC code for
Yep.
products is the same way you would use it for an ad creative. And it Ultimately, we are just here to provide transparency and accountability and make everybody's lives easier. We help enable all of those components, but we don't do them ourselves. So at AdID, we make sure that our ID and the metadata run through the ecosystem. We can validate it. We're utilized by over 80% of Fortune 500 companies, all agencies, most publishers. We just want to make people aware that it's traveling through the ecosystem and it's there, and they should utilize it for the value that it can provide.
Okay, so you as ad ID don't have to go over and twist arms to get the adoption. Is that part of what ANA and 4As does? Is it easy to get uptake and get everybody on board for this universal option?
For the most part, it is, right? On the
Because it
front.
seems so beneficial. I mean, why wouldn't you?
Exactly.
Is it a hard uptake?
No, I'll tell you what we are running into, and this is with the proliferation of the complexity in the digital space. And I define digital as anything that's not linear television. Is that it's become so complex that sometimes it gets dropped. And so I'm on a mission.
Right.
I joined Dad ID just a little under 2 years ago. My mission is to make sure that people understand this is here, make sure it doesn't get dropped as it runs through its pathway through the ecosystem, and use it. It's there. Please get the value out of it because it helps everyone. And so that's really what we are here to communicate and spread the word on. Let us help make advertising easier for everybody.
Great, great. Well, you sort of teed me up to move into our conversation about diversity. I know you personally were at Nielsen for quite a long time, but before we get to that, Media Village is very focused on multicultural and diverse owned and operated media companies. I know that Ad ID actually partnered recently with Univision, for example. So, how is the multicultural uptake happening? How does Ad ID work to help support diversity insights, for example?
Yeah, yeah. So it's near and dear to our hearts. We understand how important diversity is in making sure that it comes through every facet possible. With Ad ID, we enable the tracking and the understanding of where ads are served, as well as what that ad is comprised of. So, utilizing the metadata within Ad ID, you can align whether it is Hispanic families within a creative, or if it's targeting a certain group, or there are women associated to it. And then you could start to parse that information out and gain a better sense for, are we serving our communities best? Are we being representative of the universe that's out there? Can we make sure that we showcase that? And we are very proud to be able to offer that type of capability to our clients. They could utilize it as a field within our metadata by providing it within there, or if they understand that it's a particular ad and it's associated to a creative ID, they could track it and make sure that, hey, it's getting the exposure that we expect it to get so that we can ensure that folks are being shown the diverse
Yeah.
ads that we want them to see. So we're just so delighted to be a part of that, and we see that as continuing broader, much more than just Univision. I know we talk about Univision because they are a diverse partner, but diversity happens across the board, and we need to
Sure.
make sure that traditional publishers too are looking at the same types of insights and utilizing them. It's very important to all of us.
Yeah, yeah. And pharma, for example, or health marketing often doesn't reach. It often is under delivered to a lot of multicultural communities. So if you can track where the message is missing,
Yeah,
that's fantastic. Great.
absolutely.
Um,
Absolutely.
you mentioned an important word in there, woman. So props to you for heading up an ad tech company. It's a little less common than we would like. So what was your path after, as I said, many years at Nielsen? Give us the broad picture, sorry, the big picture of your path to CEO dom.
Well, let me tell you, it's a long and winding road, as I'm sure it is for all women out there, right? We all have to start somewhere. I started in the CPG space. So I started working
Oh,
for General Mills out of college, and I remember having some folks come in from market research talking about what they were doing, and just this light bulb went off, and I was like, I want to do that. I want to be a part of market research and figure out where it goes. And I think I've had every type of career opportunity under the sun, from strategy to sales to operations to product. And I think the long and winding road is leave yourself open to every potential opportunity, because you never know where it may take you and how it all comes together to add up, to where I am today.
I think that's great advice. I mean, I can relate. I was the first female to park cars at a resort in the Catskills, and you know,
Oh my gosh, that
that
sounds a
led
little
me.
dangerous.
You have to embrace everything because
Yes,
you don't know where it's
absolutely.
going to lead.
Absolutely.
And it's important to claim your wins. I mean, maybe not being the first car park, but what are you significantly proud of? Is there an example? Because you should be able to brag on something. So, is there a campaign or a partnership or just an accomplishment, whether it's this role that you have now? Brag on us a little.
Oh, oh my gosh. That always is an uncomfortable topic, but
And
I
it
think
should not be.
it should not be. As women, we need to embrace that and really scream from the rooftops. I would say taking opportunities or asking for opportunities often is what leads you to some of the great moments that we all have in our careers.
Mhm.
And there are two that really stick out for me, and they were while I was at Nielsen. So if we go in the Wayback Machine, and now I'm going to age myself a little bit, but there was this thing called targeting, which we now affectionately know as activation, right? So being able
Oh,
to target ads to people. I introduced that for Nielsen way back when, utilizing their
cool.
panel. And, I remember taking it on and thinking, "Well, of course we should do this. We have all this data. Why wouldn't we do it?" And forging my way through and having all of these conversations internally and externally. Is it okay for Nielsen to do this? Should we do this? Should we enter it? And it's a proud moment for me that I was the first one to introduce that for Nielsen. Obviously, we made acquisitions after the fact, and we brought in Exalate, and then we called it the Nielsen Marketing Cloud and all these other things. But I laid the foundation for that, and that gave me a sense of accomplishment and confidence
Mhm.
that, hey, you know what? Maybe I could create a few more things for the organization. So after that, I went out and I created something called Nielsen Buyer Insights, which was the first for the industry in integrating credit card and debit card and ACH data with media data to be able to understand how to target and activate against consumers, how to measure against it, how to do ROI on the back end. And, that was another one. None of these are easy, right? So I had to go to DC and talk with all different kinds of folks to talk about, this is not an invasion of privacy. This is why we should do it. This is why it's better. But I learned so much from it. And I feel like it's those stepping stones where you allow yourself to take on something that you think, wow, this might be a little too big at
Mhm.
the time, but you learn from it and you realize that nothing is too big to overcome. And then you carry that forward into other arenas.
I had no idea. I did try to research you, but you're like the mother of shopper marketing.
Oh my gosh, I don't know that I'd go that far, but
I would. Wow. I
I
think
know,
that's
so fun.
awesome.
So fun, right? I will
Yeah.
tell you. I'll tell you one thing from there. I remember the first time that I spoke after we introduced it, and just being so nervous about, oh my gosh, the world is going to come crashing down once people find out we're utilizing credit card data to do all of these things. And
Yes.
I took this deep breath and I was just waiting, and everything was fine. And I'm like, okay, it's fine.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
We put more pressure on ourselves than we need to.
Wow. That's fantastic. So here's the classic question. What advice would you either give your younger self or any other young woman who is starting her career in media or advertising? any skills or mindset that you think is really crucial?
Yeah, be open to everything. Always be the first to raise your hand. It doesn't matter what it is. And think about when we interact with people, we are always so attracted to the folks that want to be a part of something, that want to help. Raise your hand, even if you don't know. Even if you don't know what's going on, if you feel like you can help and you could provide some support, do it. And then one thing I learned from a CEO years ago who gave me an opportunity to run an integration business. I made this presentation to him, and I was hoping, "Oh, I hope he asks me to run this thing that I'm proposing to him." And so I go through the whole thing, and he goes, "Well, are you going to ask?" And I was like, "I don't know. What do you mean? What am I gonna ask for?" And he goes, "Do you want the job?" And I said, "Yes." He goes, "Well, you need to ask me for it." And so then I
Wow.
also came to the realization of
Yes.
I shouldn't wait for people to offer me things. You have to be bold enough to say, "And I would like to run this. I would like to do this. This is my vision. Can I please have an opportunity?" The worst they're going to say is no, but more often than not, they will say yes, and you get an opportunity to grow and move on.
It's so interesting because it kind of goes hand in hand with your previous point of jump on opportunities, but also you have to raise your hand
Yeah,
and indicate interest and ask for it.
exactly, exactly.
Okay, that's cool. Now, what about the proverbial work-life balance? And career, personal life, priorities. Do we still have to have that conversation? But I guess we do.
Oh
How
my
did you
gosh.
manage it?
I guess we do. It's not easy. It's not easy for anybody, man or woman. I think it's hard. It's
Mm,
hard. Um, I think we have different priorities at different stages of our lives. I have 3 boys. They're older now. The youngest is a senior in high school, and the oldest is in medical school. And I remember
wow.
when they were little, and it's hard. And how do I travel? How do I do my schedule? And I think a lot, if you have a partner in life, you have to make sure that they are in it with you, that you're aligned with them, and I'm fortunate enough to have a great partner.
Yeah.
If you're on your own, you need to set your boundaries. I will not travel during these dates, or I cannot do this, and it's okay to say no. I think we also need to understand that it's okay sometimes to say no because our personal priorities should come first.
That's great advice. And I'll ask you for two more pieces. We, as of this recording, now know we still have not managed to elect a woman as president, but for the next generation of media leaders or leaders in general, what gives you optimism about the opportunities for women? And in our particular industry, what do you think still needs to change?
Yeah. Look, I have optimism because I see more women being comfortable having conversations like we're having today. I think that's a huge step. More of us are pushing that door open for everybody else, which I think we've taken on as a responsibility. If we're getting up a rung of the ladder, we're going to help the woman up behind us to come through as well. Um, I do want to ask the industry that it's not enough just to have DEI initiatives. I think we need
Mhm.
to act on them. And more often than not, there are a lot of great promises made that I don't see a lot of accountability against sometimes. And I think we need to be realistic about that and start having those conversations. Have folks delivered on the things that they've talked about? What about equitable pay for women? What about, making sure that we're providing the right guidance and education for everybody? And we have to start making those steps forward. And I think we're at a juncture right now where enough time has passed that we can evaluate how well have we done and what do we need to fix moving forward.
So it's one thing to suggest that women entering the industry raise their hand, ask for the opportunity, try everything, put on multiple hats. And then once you're in that community and in the job world like that, it's another thing to know how to get to the C suite. Is there any different advice that you would offer for someone who wants to follow in your footsteps and be CEO or CCO or CRO or any other C?
Look, I think, surround yourself with folks that are not only mentors, but sponsors.
Mhm,
It's not the same person throughout your career. It will vary depending on what stage of career in life that you're in, and it doesn't have to be a woman. More often than not, it's men who are interested in seeing other females rise to the challenge and just be very clear about your intentions
mhm.
and what you admire about what they've accomplished. Whether or not they're in the C-suite, people have a lot to offer that they can help you with, and that's another area. Don't be afraid to ask. First of all, people will be flattered that you admire what they're doing and that you'd like to learn from them, and
Yes.
people love to talk about how they did things and how they can help you, and it makes them feel good to help other folks out. So, I think we need to take a little bit more of the initiative on ourselves to make that step forward and not just wait for others to come and ask, are you looking for a mentor? These things. Go out and ask, and people are going to be more than happy to help. So I think that really is
Mhm.
critical. Learning from others in a community that's I believe very willing to help in that sense.
Nada Bradbury, will you help me?
Oh, I've got so much I could learn from you, EB. I think we could
Ah,
other.
I think you have greased the skids of this being an excellent executive profile. So my work here is done. But yeah, I'll take any advice from someone like you. So thank you so much for joining me on this Women Advancing conversation. It's from Media Village. Reminder that this is a nonprofit education foundation serving the advertising community. And thanks again for watching and letting everyone know where they can watch or listen to this excellent wisdom from Nada Bradbury at advancingdiversity.org, mediavillage.org, YouTube, and even your favorite podcast platform. I'm EB Moss.